I'm trying to do something. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to do something here right quick.
No. Does this work?
Okay, it is October 9th, 5 p.m. We're here on the second floor of City Hall for our special council meeting regarding the city's budget. Agenda's been posted, media's been notified. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Stephen Jopek, Luke Kramer,
Here.
David Holt, Gerald Anderson,
Here.
Robert Luter, Carrie Michalowski,
Here.
Leanne Felton, Thomas Barnett, Chris Hannes.
Here. So we do not have quorum, but we can still have this because it's informational only. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I signed up for it.
Okay, is there any public comment at this time? Okay, not seeing none, moving, yeah, right. So not seeing any, moving on to number 5, new business, to discuss the 2025 proposed city budget regarding golf course, CDBG, room tax, downtown works, share ride, special projects, TIF districts, debt, capital projects, dental, and HRA. So, might as well move right into the first one, which is golf course, refer to the city administrator.
And I'm actually going to refer to the finance director.
So I just wanted to bring this back because the last time when we presented it, I had missed including a couple of new account numbers in there. So once I added those in, I saw that they were over budget by 18,000, and I cut 2 accounts with the city administrator, and then I included that in the packet so that it would be a balanced budget. And then just this afternoon, Oliphant provided me with where they really wanted the cuts to come from so that it's still a balanced budget. And one of the things that they reduced was some of the salaries in the maintenance area, in the administrative, and then they decided to postpone the lease for the beverage cart. So this second handout that I have on top outside of the packet is what their budget looks like in the city's format.
Any discussion or questions on the revised golf course budget? Mr. Kramer?
I just have a couple of questions. I was looking it over, and my questions go to credit card fees. I noticed that in there, there's quite big difference from what it used to be.
So I had a discussion with them, and one representative said that they were coding all of the credit card fees for the food and beverage, for the clubhouse and the golf shop in one category. And another representative had intended to break that out. So I did not break it out. I just have it in the one spot. But it's basically 2 or 3 separate accounts just combined in one instead for the 25 budget. And it's a projection based on what their sales are.
I just noticed that the salaries are almost doubled. Can you explain that?
So some of it depends on the category. So far as the
They're
food,
all that way.
but so food and beverages, because operations has expanded for more hours, so that's why the food and beverage is up. So that one I could speak to. As far as the other categories, I would not be able to.
Grounds went up like $50-some thousand.
If I'm not mistaken, with grounds, didn't they make another full-time?
Yes.
For Joe? So Joe has a full-time assistant now? So based on, I would be implying Joe might be retiring in the next couple of years. So to have someone that would be underneath him that could take his place is, I think, a value for the golf course and the city.
And then please keep in mind that this is a little bit different from the other budgets where the salaries line includes everything, the taxes and their health insurance and their dental insurance. It's not just a straight salary.
So the interesting with the golf course is, even though we contracted out with Oliphant, every cost out there we burden, so we burden the cost for everything out there, even though Oliphant manages it for us. So everything from buying pens to the employees' insurance, we're paying for. And then on top of that, we pay Oliphant so much per month and per year to manage it, for we don't have the headache of managing it. So, that's something to keep in mind. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't this a contract year too with Oliphant?
Yes, it is.
So-
There's contract runs out December 31st, 2024.
And I think they showed slight increases in their contract for what it would cost them to manage it more.
Yes, they did.
So that'd be something coming to council of how do we want to move forward, negotiate that contract, extend it, what have you, so. Mr. Kramer?
The other thing I'm noticing is just from the page that we got last week for their Gulf Shop merchandise, they have it as $80,542, and just last week it was $66,000. So I understand that the cost of stuff is going up, but in 1 week it went up $15,000. Under Gulf Shop, second from the bottom, 392.
That could have been my entering their information in and it not saving properly, but that number I did not alter. I did some reconciliation to make sure what was in our system matched what they provided to me.
Yeah.
But that is what they intended the last time.
That's what I saw on the last one too. I could be mistaken as well, but I remember seeing 80 because we talked about that when we were talking about where we needed to cut. So I don't know if something was given out incorrectly, but I don't think so. We've been talking about 80,000 and because we had questions on it.
Okay. So if there's no other discussions on the golf course, we move on to the CDBG revolving loan fund, referred to our city administrator.
Yeah, basically this is for the CDBG that's administered by MSA, correct? So it's for improvement to properties. I don't know how many we've had take advantage of this year. I know I've handed this out 10 times to different people who are looking to improve their properties. MSA is the one that administers this, so we don't get an update all the time on it. So I'm not honestly sure. I don't know if you know, Wendy, how many people have taken advantage of this?
So if you were to look at the financials, it's confidential, but we have each loan listed as a receivable on the balance sheet for the CDBG fund, and I just sent those out earlier today for Monday's meeting. And I get a list from MSA every year at the end of the year to reconcile what the true balance is that they owe us, and there's a couple of pages of people that have used the loan and are still paying it back. But I don't know the number of how many new ones are this year, but it seems like each year it's been at least 2 or 3 new ones that I've added.
And we have this available. We have this for anybody that's interested, any city residents, city property owners that are interested. Always happy to give it out. It is income-based, but still, it's something that can be used by property owners. It's a nice program.
Mr. Anderson?
What does the professional services line include on here?
That'd be MSA who
That's the
does.
administration.
Yeah, MSA, they take the applications, they do the research.
They process the
Yeah.
applications.
So,
And why do we budget so much higher than what's been actual?
Well, again, I think it's based on how much is used. If it's used to its full extent, it would probably be more. And normally when you budget, you budget your revenues conservatively, and the expenses, you budget for what you think is going to happen, almost like the worst case scenario, but not quite. Because you don't want to run short.
Wendy might know, do we do like a yearly contract with MSA for this, or is it a long-term?
I think it's just been a long term. I have not seen a contract.
I mean, that's something we could take out for bid if you guys wanted to explore their options versus MSA doing it, and, you know. So,
I would tell you that it seems to be working well right now. Now, whether people take advantage of it or not, what is that old adage? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You know, we can give this out. MSA seems to be doing a fairly good job at this. I've heard no real complaints, no real issues. So I would advise sticking with the horse that got you there. But it's definitely, if that's something you want to take out for bid, it's always available.
I wasn't suggesting that. I was just trying to figure out why we have it this way in the budget. We're projecting administrative costs, well, 2 years in a row, but twice what actually happens. And I just wondered why that was. We're not expecting the, well, maybe we are. Okay, looks like the construction disbursements did go up this year.
There is absolutely no way for me to predict what it's going to be on this one. And I have in the past reached out to MSA to get a projection, and there isn't a way for them to project what's going to come in. So we've budgeted this way to have like a safety net, where otherwise if I only budget close to what our actual has been, and then we have 3 projects coming in, then I'm going to have to be doing budget amendments. But the neat thing about this fund is it's a revolving loan fund, so we're not going to be able to budget more or expend more than what we're receiving back. There's nothing additional that's going into this besides just the loans themselves and them being repaid.
okay, if nothing else on that one, we move on to room tax. So room tax is a tax we collect from any hotels, motels, VRBOs. You know, they pay for that type of service. We collect that on a quarterly basis. From there, per a previous contract with the chamber as a designated entity, they get 70% of what we collect. We keep the other 30% in-house. So some of the things we use this for is the fireworks is a big, you know, activity we do out of this. When needed, Pioneer Historical Complex, we fund through this account. Lately, we've been buying new ADA benches. If you've been seeing them throughout our parks every year, that's been funded through this program. And I believe some downtown beautification stuff in the past has been. So there's only certain things you could use this fund for, and it has to do with marketing. It has to do with, you know, attracting people that don't live in your community to visit. With that, some of this is a little tricky because you're trying to make a budget based on other people's business and the tax you collect off their business. So we had a couple new hotels open up, well, one open up, one come off the books, and then another one opening up in a month or two. So what does that do to the market? Also, what does the price do to all the hotel industry now too? You know, you add more hotel rooms, is the price of rooms going to go up or down? Who knows? So that's where you've seen from a budget point of view, we are conservative and keeping it at 400,000 from a revenue point of view, and then the expenses there. From the budget that goes to the chamber, they have a budget every year and they present that to the room tax committee, they vote on it. But it's still all based on the percentage of what they collect. So even on their end, they're usually conservative based on they don't have a true dollar number until we start seeing it. So I don't know if there's anything else Wendy or Patrick would like to go into.
No, that's pretty much correct. It's one of those that you're taking an educated guess on this.
So, the only other thing I would say is, at least from the chamber side, we have seen growth even past COVID. because a lot of people thought with COVID, it was kind of the high tide. You know, because a lot of people wanted to get out of the big cities, they wanted to come up here to vacation, get away. So a lot of people thought COVID was high tide and it would kind of bubble down again. There's still growth. Now, is that just because we have more hotel units available and we're seeing the growth? Is that inflation growth? It's hard to tell how much is which, but it's still showing growth in that sector, which is good for a hotel industry as well as restaurants, bars, that kind of stuff that they, you know, the Hodag store, that kind of stuff. So, any questions regarding this budget? Okay, moving on to downtown works. So this is similar to the CBG, but it's more for a downtown and it's for storefronts, small businesses. So in the past, a couple of them have taken advantage for windows, for facade, for anything that improves the structure of a small business. I think every year we have someone that kind of applies. We get close and then they back out, so we haven't really done one in a year or two.
If I may, Mayor Hannes, if I might interject. So we've had people asking about this, and it seems as though it's been dormant for, what was it, 2017, 2018, Austin? We met with Craig Lau from the bank, who was historically kind of the chair of this, helped this whole thing kind of go, because Austin and I, obviously, the last loan was well before we were here. So we got familiar with it. We're looking to bring this back. We're going to be working with the city attorney to see what the best way to bring this back, but I would expect this to be back in front of you within the next month or two for some consideration and conversation. So the great program to help out the downtown. Really good program. Looking to make loans of up to $20,000. One way to think about what you can use this for, Jim Rosenberg from the WEDC actually said it kind of best with one of his, but it fits this. If you could pick the building up and shake it, anything that doesn't fall out is what that loan can be used for. So it's kind of a weird way to think about it, but so I asked like central air conditioning units. He's like, yeah, those are attached to the building, so those would be something you could use it for. And like the mayor said, windows and other things like that are great things. But we're looking to bring this back. Austin and I are going to be working on it, so stay tuned.
Any questions regarding this budget? Mr. Anderson?
That only includes the downtown area?
Yes.
Yeah, well, yes with a but. So currently, correct, that board is made up of some members of DRI because they were initially a funding agency. It's also made up with someone from the bank industry, Craig Lau, and the city. There's been some talk of expanding it to any small business within the city, not necessarily just a downtown, because I think Clary Foundation, if I'm not mistaken, Wendy was also a funder of this to start it, possibly.
Yeah.
I am not certain on that.
Oh,
It's been so long since this worked. Jim is saying yes. So is a farmer downtown business. Yeah. So no, this is and that's one of the things that we're going to be discussing is what we want to do with it, what the future of this looks like, and how it's going to be made up. But we want to. Austin and I both have the goal of making this something that is used each and every year. That isn't something that falls by the wayside like it did in 2018 or whenever it was. So we want to get this kicked back into gear.
hope that answered your question in a long way. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else on there. We move on to the next one, which is shared ride. So for ones who don't know, the city received some grant money through the state to provide more efficient public transit, a more affordable public transit. So a couple years ago, they switched over to Runnings, Inc. So that's the ones when you see the taxi cabs or the vans saying Rhinelander Public Transit. Those are the ones that we receive a grant. That grant gets used for that. And for the last couple years, the grant and the revenue from the passengers does not cover the cost of it. So it's actually been a net negative to the city's balance books, where we have to substitute some money every year to keep it functional. There's a couple taxi companies in town. I want to say three. There's two. So Hodag Cab, which is completely private. This one is a partnership with public and private. refer to the city administrator?
Yeah, Wendy gave you, and actually I'm going to turn it over to Wendy here, but Wendy gave you a great breakdown of the issues that we're facing here. Right now, you're looking at funding for next year at $76,000. And Wendy also gave you a breakdown of running Inc. passenger trips, another sheet here, which shows that the ridership is declining. So Wendy, I'll let you take over on it.
So one of the things is, this is going to be on the council agenda for Monday also, because how this program works is the municipality procures a service provider for 2 contract years and then 3 option years after that. So it could be up to 5 years, and then they're required to go out through the procurement process again. So we did the procurement process in 2020 and switched from Rapid Cab to Running Inc. So I have information of what the trips were for the contract of 2016 to 2020 with Rapid Cab, and then Running was able to provide me the information of how many trips they had in 21, 22, 23, and through August of 24, and then break it down by hour of the day. Going from the 2016-2020 contract to the 21 to 24 contract, 25 contract, we did reduce the hours just a little bit, but we're still keeping it as a 24/7 taxi service, and it's a shared ride program, so there's a little bit of restrictions on how they can operate the program. It has to be shared ride. They can't have scheduled rides. They can request a schedule, but the timing is not guaranteed because it depends on who else is sharing that cab. So we've completed the first 2 contract years, and then we are now looking at the 3rd option year. And we have a form, the exercise of options, that's going to be presented to council on Monday. It would take the current year's hourly rate that we pay the taxi provider, and it gets increased by the CPI of August, which the DOT sent the form. The increase is 2.5%. So the hourly rate is going to go up to $32.51 per hour for our contract hours of 25,428. And if you were to check out the packet, I have the math calculation because it's easier to explain it, but there's a percentage of what we will get for federal funding, and then there's a percentage of what the state requires as a local share, and then they determine what the state funding will be. And based on what our expenses are with the rate increase, our budgeted expenditures are going to be $831,000 for 2025 as an estimate. And then we have to estimate what our revenues are. We charge each passenger or each trip a fee, and then the federal and state funding is supposed to subsidize that. Well, if our passenger trips have declined, so the revenues that we have been collecting to offset the local share have declined, but the expenditures, if those don't decline with that, then it creates a larger local share. And the way it's projected right now, our local share was estimated as $29,000 for 2024. It's jumping up to $76,000 for 2025. So the biggest reason that I can see is our passenger trips have declined. So when we were projecting an increase, we did do a rate increase of $1.25 effective January 1st of 2023. And we had projected revenues to be close to $344,000, but they're actually not, the actuals are not coming in close to that. And for 24, it's not projected to be, it's underneath 300,000, so that's why I used an estimate of 300,000. But I don't know if we will even reach that.
And if you don't reach that, it's gonna.
Then it's just going to be a higher local share that we have to pay. So this is an estimate, but it's really the actuals. Once they come in, then we'll know what the exact amount is for the local share. The nice thing is, or a saving grace that we have had, is from 2020 through 2023, there was some COVID funding to cover the local share because the service was all over the place with the different uniqueness of the time, but that funding has run out.
So what assets does the city own that's part of this? So do we own any of the vehicles, or is that all true runnings and we lease them, or how does that work?
We have one accessible van. It's a 2022 Chrysler Voyager, I believe, that the city owns with the lien holder as the state of Wisconsin, because it's a grant-funded vehicle. And if we were not to operate the program, then we would just have to transfer that van to another municipality that had a shared ride program.
So my next question would be, and I don't know if you guys know the answer, by state statute, do we have to be involved in this?
That I don't know.
No,
So,
not, well, let me not answer that. I don't know, but I would think that the state would have said, you are required to do this.
okay.
But they provided a couple of options that I also put in that report, that we could look at reducing the number of hours, but then we'd have to work with our taxi provider to see if that's acceptable to them. And depending on the amount of hours that we would reduce it by, will determine if we have to do a new procurement for 2025, because it depends on if it materially changes the original RFP, the original procurement document.
So another thing to keep in mind too, Oneida County does have somewhat of a public transit system, and it goes through, I believe, what, 3 different counties?
Two.
Two. So, I mean, they do have that. So one of the other questions would be, well, one is ridership down across the boards. Are we losing market share to Hodag Cab, to that program, what have you? In that, I don't have the answer for. I do know there are segments of the population that wasn't happy with us not, when this was set up back in, 2016, that it wasn't a local company. There was an outside company brought in. So I know there was some issues with some residents of it not being a local company. I also do know there's a couple industries in Rhinelander that do not support us doing this. They much support Hodag. So, and that's their choice, but that could be another reason why we're seeing ridership go down, is just Hodag is either providing better service, lower prices, or a combination. So,
And I mean, the ridership, if you look at this running in passenger trips, actual pickup time by hour sheet that Wendy gave, I mean, they're markedly down. It's not just a little bit, it's a lot. Now, the last one is just through August, so grain of salt, but 2016 you had 86,000 riders. 2023 you had 44,000 riders.
so the other question I have from at least the grant funding mechanism, if we were to explore the option of getting out of this, how hard would it be to get back in if we find out it then provides a giant vacuum?
We would have to just give notice 1 year ahead before we go through the procurement process.
So you kind of got a 1 year waiting period, so to speak.
Yes.
If you, when you decide you want to get back into the program, if we do.
But if I understand things right, that process wouldn't happen until, it would happen in 25? Because it happened in 20?
So right now, the question is going to be, do we want to continue with the shared ride program for 2025? we have the exercise of options to decide yes or no on for 2025. And then if we want to go into 26 through, would that be 2030? In 25, while we're still operating the shared program, we'll go through the procurement process for the 26 contract.
Mr. Anderson?
What kind of deadline do we have at this point to make those decisions?
It was October 11th, and I talked to them, and they said yes, that they could extend the deadline for the exercise of options form until council was able to meet and come up with a decision of a yes or no. And you can read through it, and I also included this page in with the council packet for Monday to kind of give you as much background information as possible. But it would be easier to discontinue the program by not exercising the option to continue for 25 than to get into the 25 year and then try to break the contract.
Is there any way that we could get the same numbers from Hodig Cab?
I doubt it, because it's a private company.
Could we ask?
I suppose, but they're not binded by any reason to
I
actually give them
understand
up.
that. I'm
so.
just curious if because now there's two, where there, with Rapid Cab, there was only one cab company. So the fact that there's two cab companies and the fact that Running's ridership went down by half, I'm only to assume that possibly the other half is with Hodag. And it'd be nice to know if that's true or if the ridership in general has gone down.
True.
We can ask. I wouldn't hold my breath on anything though, so.
Okay.
I'm not certain what that would change, though. I mean,
Well, it paints the picture if it's a market share issue or just a demand issue.
Yeah,
okay.
So,
nice way to put that.
Mr. Anderson?
Okay, it looks like on the sheet about the number of trips that we're going to be about the same as last year if it continues. You know, two-thirds, if we've done two-thirds of the year is 28.8, then the whole year at that same rate would be 33.4. So that's about the same. But we're only doing 25,000 last year, or for 24. I guess I don't understand the transfer from general fund line. If we had 70,000 actual for 23, we're looking at 25,000 for 24 and 76,000 for 25. Why does it fluctuate like that?
So that is because when we did the 24 application and the budget, we were estimating receiving $344,000 of revenue. And we know that we are not going to get that. And we have not gotten close to that. It has been underneath 300,000 for 21, 22, 23. So sure, I could put that in as 344,000 and we're still going to end up paying it out as a local share because it's based on what the actuals come out to be. So it doesn't do anybody any service to inflate the revenues above what the realistic projection is. So that is why it's now a $76,000 local share, is because we're not going to come close to 344,000 for revenue. And that's a piece of the equation, is what are we going to get for revenue from our passenger rides, which is directly related to the number of trips.
Where does 344,000 appear on this sheet?
It doesn't. It appears on the application. It appears on
revenue.
The cost is $830,000 to run the program. We're only going to pay running like $500,000 because they're going to collect $300,000 and they're going to keep that to go towards the expenditures. And we just pay the difference. What do they call it? The net deficit.
This seems like the kind of thing that we should have had a little more notice about. That and the golf contracts also. There are some major contracts that are coming up at the first of the year, but have to be done now. Seems like a little more time for us to think about it would have been useful. I still don't understand that projected of 25,000 for this year. I mean, why is that so much lower than the previous year and the following year?
Well, I could update that. We're not completely done with the 24 year, so it's really hard for me to project what it's going to be. But I can
Well,
see if I can get more information on it.
Would you project something around 70,000?
I don't know,
Is it-
because I don't know the numbers on that.
Okay.
I was focused on what the 25 amount's going to be.
Okay, I tend to assume that the projected column is based on not exact knowledge, but some reasonable forecast, but you're saying that really doesn't reflect anything in this case. It's just that's what's in the budget.
Especially for this, because it's not, like when you look at a public works budget, that's completely controlled by us. This is a partnership with an independent company, and we don't have real-time data. Like we can't just look on a sheet and say, hey, look, they had 10 rides today. We have to get a hold of them, get some back and forward. So yeah, in these types of budgets where it's a partnership and a city, that projected column's a little more of a dart at the wall versus a science.
Looking at it from the viewpoint of the users, it seems to me that when we're doing this subsidized service, we also are keeping down the local rates in general, that Hodad can't charge a whole lot more, or they wouldn't, even no matter how people feel about them, they wouldn't go with that. So it seems to me one consideration also, if we're thinking about getting out of this business, is will that mean everybody will have to pay a lot more in the future?
Or at a minimum, I would say competition equals lower prices by default. So I mean, no matter who's.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so now the flip side of it is, if you're down to one cab company, would that then entice another private company to open a cab company to compete? I don't know, it's the free market. So have we already posted the agenda for Monday?
No, we haven't.
So I kind of wonder if we should expand the topic from just the contract on Monday to a bigger discussion about, should the city be in this market? At what cost is it worth us being in the market? And then if Ms. Michalowski wants us to contact Hodag Cab, do you want us to dig a little deeper and try to find out what they're charging for rates? Maybe this is something where we're charging twice as much they are and we're just not competitive. And or if we were to dissolve, can they handle the additional 30,000 drivers? Because I mean, at the end of the day, I'm looking at this from a service to the people using this. If Hodag Cab thinks they could meet that demand and their prices are relatively the same, maybe it's better for us not to be in this market. I don't know. So
The only thing I use it for is to go to the airport. And that's my experience has been, although nothing real recent, that they were charging about the same amounts for that, at least. but that's, that's nothing to base the budget on either.
True. And, I mean, I know there's another, and is it the right way to look at it or not is debatable. Hodag Cab is a local company. They own a building in the city. They employ city people. Should we be competing with small businesses in our community? I don't know,
The other, I think a part of that question earlier about does the state require us to do this? My assumption has always been not necessarily, but between them and the federal government, they are giving us a pretty decent subsidy to do it. And that, that in itself has seemed like a good reason, but if that's not working out, well, maybe we have to look at it differently.
So, yeah, if we could expand the agenda item on Monday then, to just have a bigger discussion about the taxi cab service.
Yeah, right now I just have it as a shared ride service, shared ride program, so.
But I think a more open parameter might be more adequate versus just discussing a contract, so. And I wish more would have been here for input, but it is what it is.
We want to
so.
be able to discuss the contracts as well, but
Correct. Yeah.
One thing, if I could, which I respectfully, Gerald, I disagree with you on the golf contract. The season wasn't over, and had we brought that to you in July, you would have said, well, what are the numbers for this year? And we wouldn't have been able to provide those to you. So that one's kind of hard. Plus, you also have a golf course committee that we're waiting to get recommendations from. And to bring that contract and discuss that and get that all ironed out and then have the golf course committee make a recommendation seems kind of like you're spitting in the face a little bit of the golf course committee. So I don't want to do that either. So I understand what you're saying, but I think there's numbers that need to be, that go along with the story of the contract.
well, on the golf course, is that something that we'll be receiving soon?
Yes, they will be meeting October 21st, finalizing recommendations. You should have them on the 28th. I see no reason not to.
So, was there any other discussion regarding the share a ride budget? Technically, no. Yeah, unfortunately. So, okay, going on to the special project fund. I'll refer to our city administrator.
And I'm going to move it. I'll let you handle it.
So the Special Projects Fund has been set up so that when we have projects that are funded by a different revenue source entirely, that we could put it into a special revenue fund that would allow it to go over more than 1 year to spend down that unique source of revenue, and to pull it off the general fund to help with the expenditure restrictions. The Special Projects Fund right now has been the ARPA funding, and we are in the process of spending that down. I did include another page in your packet that showed how these funds have been being spent down and what we have left to spend down. We have, and this will also be in my report for on Monday, but we have 63,000 left to spend, and we have about 50,000 left over of projects that we're spending it on, and then about 13,600 that we haven't designated yet, that we're looking to spend it before December 31st of 2024. And then also in the Special Projects Fund is the transfers and the accumulation for the revaluation assessment for the citywide. And because the urban forestry grant is going to be 100% grant without a local match, I also budgeted that in the Special Projects Fund.
Any questions or discussions?
I guess I do, regarding the ARPA funding. So the 13,000 that's not spoken for, we obviously want to use that money because it's given to us, right? Is there any way that, or is it possible to use that money on another project that was earmarked money from another account? And then not use as much of general fund money that was allocated to the original project?
Do you have a specific
Specific?
project in mind?
I do. The skate park. So the council earmarked, 75,000 for design and engineering. Could we use this 13,000 as paying for part of that and have 13,000 of the 75, be available in the general fund?
Well, remember that 75 was out of borrowing, so you'd just be freeing up the borrowing. So, but still, yeah.
You know my concept, though? I mean, that hasn't been paid yet, so
Well.
I'm just saying,
I would say we would have to look at the American Rescue Plan if it would allow us for an engineering, if it was more.
it would because it's enhancing a park.
Correct, but there might be some guidance of, if it was building the actual skate park, fine, that I think would work, but since this is just doing design exploratory work on a whole new project, they might say it might not be compatible, but, you could argue
I mean, you have to do
anything.
that before you could even build it, so
True.
it goes hand
But
in
with this
hand.
being the end of its life versus the beginning of the life of the skate park, they might balk at it a little bit. So, but we could find something, easily.
Yeah, okay.
I would argue, I have seen other entities use it for parks, pickup truck, vehicles like that, any kind of signage. We used our grant we got through the county for a bike trail and docks at Hodag Park. So, definitely I think it will be used versus giving it back somewhere, so. Any other discussion on the Special Projects Fund? Okay, moving on to TIFs, which is always a fun time. So TIF number 1, environmental. I don't know if Wendy or Patrick has anything you want to, go with you?
Wendy is the guru of TIFs and TIDs.
So it was just in September that I had provided you with a TIF report review, and I don't know if you want me to go through that same information that had already presented to you, but TIF 1 is, I believe, the condominiums on Boom Lake. And the first thing I'd like to point out is the tax increments, the budgeted amount for 2025 that I have in these budgets is based on a formula that looks at what the tax levies are going to be for 25 for the city, the county, Nicolay, and the school district. I don't know those numbers yet. So right now, this is just an estimate, and it's based on last year's levy amounts. So that is going to fluctuate a little bit, but I don't know where that's going to be at. In this TIF district, there is a shortfall payment by the developer where if we do not have enough from the increment to pay the principal and interest on the 2021A borrowing, that final payment is going to be in 25. It does not look like we're going to have enough of the tax increment to cover that, so the developer is going to make a shortfall payment to make us whole there. And then we just have administrative expenses in here, and an annual audit, and that's about it.
Do we know when this TIF would be at the end of its life, by chance?
The last year to collect increment is 2028.
I don't know if anyone else had any questions regarding this TIF. Okay, not seeing, moving on to our second TIF, which is the Airport Business Park, TIF number 6. This one actually looks to be doing very well.
This TIF district is required to terminate by September of 2025.
Would there be any value, and this might be more of an Ellis question, so if we have a TIF that's sitting on a substantial balance, and if there's no foreseeable projects in the near future from an expense point of view, and there is outstanding debt, because it looks like we do have some debt payments, would there be a value, like in this case, of possibly just paying off that debt ahead of time?
So every year, Ellers looks at all of the city's debt and their refunding availability, if it would be, if it's eligible to be paid off early. There are some restrictions at the beginning of the borrowings, and then if we can refinance them. And we did do that, I believe it was 2 years ago, where we went through the TIF districts and paid down some of the debt. But I don't have the cash flows for these in front of me, so I'm not certain where the debt is at for each one of them. But I don't believe any of them right now are in the position to pay down their debt with what they have as the cash on hand. So that by the end of the life of the TIF district, there might be a larger amount, but it doesn't mean that we have today the cash on hand to satisfy any borrowings in each one of these TIFs.
Any questions regarding the Airport Business Park?
I'm just curious what computer exemption is.
So I don't have the history on that. But I'm assuming that just like we have the personal property tax aid, we might have collected some tax on it that they decided to not tax, and to make us whole, the state provides aid. It might have been something like that. I have not looked into it.
Okay. Moving on to the next one, which is our downtown TIF, number 8. I don't know if anyone has, I mean, it's kind of very similar to the rest, so I don't know if there's any discussion on any of this.
The unique thing on this one is there is the potential for a WEDC grant for one of the businesses, local businesses, and it's just going to pass through the city. So it's going to come in as revenue and it's going to go out as an expenditure.
We're waiting on, it's for the, you talk about Dinky Diner grant, we're waiting on the grant agreement from WEDC. I know that I've been told that they have received this grant, but we need to wait on a formal grant agreement.
Okay, not seeing any discussion on this one. Moving on to print pack number 9. Don't know if there's any discussion on this TIF. Mr. Anderson?
There's two parts to this one. The different final payment dates, and that's what I'm looking at. 2029 and 2031.
They're two different debt issuances.
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't one to the developer and one was for utility? Or am I thinking of something else?
So
And I don't expect you to know it off the top of your head. It's just one of those, you tend to know a lot of random numbers off the top of your head.
I don't know that any of this was to the developer. It could have been, no, I do not know the answer to that. I know that the 21 borrowing was to refinance a couple of the older borrowings.
Is it, I do know when this was put in, they ended up putting a utilities out past Print Pack to the bridge, you know, hoping there'd be more economic development that way. So I know that had to be a substantial cost at the time to do, so. Okay, if not seeing anything else for that one, moving on to number 10, which is a car dealership on Stevens Street. I don't know if there's any questions about this one. Okay, if not seeing any, now we're moving into our two newest TIF districts. So you got number 11, which is the Cobblestone Hotel and properties on Kemp Street. So since this is a new one, we haven't really seen much of a revenue source. And per the development contracts, you know, there was payments made out to them, so we had to take on debt. So that's where it's showing, because it's at the beginning of its life.
And the tax increment in this one is, it's only going to vary just by the tax levies. The tax increment is based on the value as of 1/1/2024. So it won't be until, so it has encompassed the construction up to January 1st of 2024. So any construction within 2024, we're not going to see until 2025.
And this one's actually kind of a little interesting. So when you form a TIF district, if there's a property not paying taxes, such as like the county shops in this one, there was a parking lot that was owned by economic development by the old Print Pack. So all those were tax exempt at the time. Church, school, government property. If that sells, that is now taxed. So actually, if I'm not mistaken, didn't the one parking lot sell to the paper mill now? So it's not a huge dollar amount, but when you have non-tax properties in a TIF district become taxable, that's additional revenue. But now on the flip side, such as what happened to our downtown TIF district, when you have nonprofits buy structures in a TIF district and those no longer pay taxes, that hurts your TIF. So something to keep in mind when, you know, you're making a TIF district or development agreement, and we might put stipulations of you can't, we're not going to help you build your project if you're going to sell it to a nonprofit, because we're taking out debt potentially and not having a source of revenue. So if you ever, you know, when you're bored and you're reading through those big development agreements we do, that's part of the reasoning for why we put in there it has to be a tax-paying entity, for we don't get caught with, you know, a bank note and no revenue to support it. So, okay, if nothing else for Cobblestone, we move on to number 12, which is Holiday Hotel. And this was the hotel plus 5 or 6 outlots they have there too is included in this TIF. Mr. Anderson.
What does STFL mean?
The state trust fund loan. And you'll be seeing that also on Monday's packet.
There'll be a lot in Monday's packet, I'm afraid.
So on this year, on this TIF district, 25 is the first year that we have the full increment of the Holiday Inn Express on there. And there's a calculation of paying the annual debt service, and then a portion for administrative fees, and then a calculation to start paying the developer the pay-go incentive. So that's down on the grants, donations to other organizations account ending in 720.
Yeah.
Okay, not seeing any other discussion with this one. Move on to our next budget, what is our debt service citywide? Refer to Wendy.
So this sheet here is the debt service that is paid by the debt tax levy by the general fund. Basically, there's revenue debt and general obligation debt. This is the general obligation debt. We have other debt out there, but if it's being paid by revenues of like the golf course or the ambulance or any of the TIF districts, then those budgets pay it from their revenues. This is only specific to the levy that we're going to apply to the taxpayers, specific to the general obligation debt. And that levy amount is the first line of the general property tax.
Any questions about this budget at all? Okay, not seeing, moving on to our next one, which would be our capital projects citywide for Fund 434. Refer to Wendy.
This is our 23 borrowing that we have been spending down, and I've gotten information from the department heads of where their current projects are at to see what's going to be spent through 24, and then I just budget to spend it down to completion in 25.
Not seeing any discussion on this one. Moving on to the next one, which is capital projects, Fund 435. Wendy?
Well, this one I can pass over to Patrick, but we're in the pattern of borrowing every 2 years for up to $1 million for general fund capital projects. And this is what we have so far for 2025 as an estimate. And if you flip to the next page, I have a list of what projects we would like to fund with the 25 borrowing.
So we've worked with department heads, Wendy and I have spoken with, I think, all of them, and these are some, excuse me, these are some of the things that we're looking to acquire with the 2025 capital asset borrowing. So one of the things that we had talked about with Brandon Caraba and the community foundation there, the Kiwanis, sorry, was with the building of the splash pad, the playground out there. One of the things we said that we would get is new bathrooms, because as you probably know, the bathrooms at Hodag Park are beyond their expected life, let's put it that way. So they need some care, so we're going to give them some care. Now, remember, I believe, and Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong, with that borrowing, we don't receive these borrowing funds till, is it October?
So the ideal part to borrow is after you have your audit complete.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, so that's just so you know, so this isn't going to be, January 2nd, let's get to purchasing. It's going to be, there's some thought put into this. But I mean, for the streets department, you have a half-ton truck, a wood chipper, and a new plow truck. We have some old plow trucks out there. For the fire department, a UTV for Heel Creek is what we're looking at. Due to the kind of out nature of Heel Creek, the fire department can't obviously bring a truck out there, so they're going to need something. If they do need to do a rescue out into the woods, they can get to the folks. So, and then 3 life packs, police, a bunch of things here: portable radios, squad radar units, firearms, a new vehicle, and some more radar speed signs. Lloyd, I hope I'm not talking out of turn here, but we're looking at replacing the speed trailer that we have and 2, possibly 3 more of those radar speed signs, which have been very well received. The places where I've seen them, Lloyd did a great job. Lloyd and Justin did a great job with this. The place where I've seen those things, I've seen a lot of people slowing down, and I appreciate it, but I don't appreciate it because I want to get somewhere faster. But they're doing the right thing, and they've slowed me down too. So there's something that I asked Lloyd. I said, do you have more places to put more of these? And he just about jumped through the phone and said, yeah, I got some more places if you're looking. So he definitely had those.
So we have to put one on Driscoll Lane?
Yeah, probably. That'll be the last place one goes. But no. So this is the borrowing. The borrowing to me is a mixed bag. We need these items. I'm not a gigantic fan, but I realize it's necessary. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. So, but hopefully these things will make it so we can provide better service, keep the city a little safer, and make sure that we're doing our jobs well, and our folks have the equipment that they need to do their jobs well.
Mr. Anderson?
I'm sorry, I guess I missed it, but what's security threat license?
You want that one, or do you remember what it was?
For IT.
Yeah, it's. If only Tara was here.
I saw it.
I believe it's the license for the renewal for the $100,000 grant that I was able to get, and so that would be the extra cost for the license for the following year.
Is this a one-time thing? Or?
No, it'll be an annual or several-year thing, so.
Well, then I wonder why we're doing it through borrowing.
Because that's not budgeted. When we did budgets for 25, we didn't get the grant yet, so. And I'm not sure off the top of my head how many years that was for.
Is the grant in your report?
Yes.
Tara got a grant, so you'll be reading about it on Monday. Give you something to look through the packet for. You're going to love it. So Tara did a great job.
Anything else for this budget? I'm not seeing, moving on to our next one, which is dental insurance. Refer to our city administrator.
And I'm going to pass it right along to Wendy there, both that and the HRA plan.
So the dental insurance for the city is self-funded, which means that the city collects the premiums from the employees, and then it's 50% from the employees, 50% from the city. We put into this fund, and then all the dental claims come out of this fund. There isn't a separate insurance company for it. And so far it looks like we went into 2024 with a fund balance of $39,000, and after the projected 2024 and the 25 borrowing, or not the borrowing, I'm sorry, the 25 budget, we're still going to have a fund balance remaining. So the key goal is to just keep money available in here. If it gets low, and we had to do this several years ago, it was getting low and running into the negative, and we had to raise our dental rates. But that was the only time we had to do it, because it caught back up.
So it's really not an insurance, it's just a fund?
It's a self-funded insurance. So it's weird. Our health insurance is fully insured with an insurance company, where we pay them the insurance premiums, and they bear the risk of the claims. The dental insurance is self-funded, which means the city, out of this fund, pays out the claims. We take on the entire risk.
Okay, not seeing any other discussion. Moving on to our last budget of the night, HRA plan. Looks like it's you, Wendy Patrick.
So this was set up several years ago to help when we had to increase our, we had to increase our deductible to be able to stay with an affordable health insurance plan. So we set up this HRA plan. An employee is offered the ability to elect into this program where they pay a monthly fee, monthly premium into here, and then if they have claims in between the 2,000, 4,000 range to the 5,000, 10,000 range, then it comes out of this HRA fund. So this is just similar to the dental. We're just trying to keep a fund balance in there. So we've had the same rates since it started.
Any discussions on this one? Okay, not seeing. Okay, that would be the end of our new business. So our next regular council meeting will be this upcoming Monday, October 14th at 6 p.m. And then we still have one more budget hearing, October 16th at 5 p.m. here at City Hall. It is 6:11 and 49 seconds. Meeting adjourned.